Hi, Ruth Ann Talks here. Haven't been in for a while. Cut my hair. Like it? I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about the pros and cons of family. And I also want to talk about the notion of one's profession, namely in the arts. Let's start with the latter. I was thinking back upon the totality of my professional life, which amassed some 35 plus years. From childhood, music making in our household was spontaneous, expressive, joyful. My father was a natural. He played the harmonica in one hand and the bones in the other, and he carved those himself. He played by ear. He sang like a cross between Bing Crosby and Dean Martin. And I inherited the lion's share of those gifts, for which I am deeply grateful. Here's the deal. In childhood and throughout elementary school and all the way through junior high, senior high, and even in those first few music lessons, cello lessons, and playing a lot of piano, there was never a moment of trepidation connected to live music making for me. Not even a millisecond of nervous anticipation. If any anticipation, it was excited, increasing in energy, couldn't wait to play. Even in the orchestra, John Norton had the Rachmaninoff piano concerto. I had 2.5, 3 measures of cello solo. I couldn't wait for my opportunity to make the most beautiful sound possible on my instrument. I couldn't wait to see how much passion I could squeeze out of that cello. I looked forward to it. I looked forward to it in rehearsal. I looked forward to it in the concerts. To me, it was just an opportunity to make something beautiful with sound, whether it be singing, playing the piano, or the cello. And then something happened. Oh, and the juries, the faculty assessments, I looked forward to those. I couldn't wait to play for the faculty. I wanted to make the most beautiful music for them to hear. The notion of critique never entered the equation. There was no equation. There was no critique. It wasn't necessary. You just go in, you put your end pin in the floor, you put your cello between your knees, and you make something beautiful. That's all that was required of you. I was never exposed throughout my childhood to any pedagogy that included helpful critique. It was never factored in. It was never one of the criteria. And I've concluded several things looking back over my years in the profession, up through and including my final audition. And that is, if you're an artist, making music, making something visual, making something physical, writing a poem or a story or an essay or a play or a screenplay, you should only utilize descriptive language when assessing it. Only descriptive language, never judgmental language. Art doesn't belong in the domain of criticism. And here's why. Because the artist inherently enters the space ready to contribute, ready to express. If an external force decides to judge it for its inherent worth, the artist is taken aback, either momentarily or profoundly. And some of us are completely shut down by any notion that what we just did belongs in the realm of assessment, measured for its quality. Now, the profession of music making. A device enters the sphere which generates some kind of profit or benefit for somebody else, and the artist becomes the commodity at the behest, at the service of another entity, be it an organization or a single individual or a small group of self-appointed critics. Once that happens, the artist's life changes. It changes in dimension, scope, nature, and yes, quality. Once we are owned by another entity, trotted out and exploited, something inside us dies or is wounded, and if that happens repetitively enough, it dies. And we have to find a way of being reborn, to regain our intrinsic right to have complete domain over that which we create. Once I joined a professional orchestra as a player, not contracted, but as a regular player, and the quality of what I was producing became the object of critics who, as time went on, decided whether I deserved to remain there by calling auditions or gradually bumping me out in favor of other commodities more likely to serve the needs of those who own them. My joy factor, my joy meter, inched downward. In the final couple years of my tenure with my local chamber orchestra, I was called upon to play orchestral solos in virtually every performance. Those are killer. Over those, you have no domain at all. You're at the mercy of the fermata, the conductor's baton, and go. It's the equivalent of the gun that goes off at the horse race. And you have to run the fastest to win it. There's no joy in that. Nothing but anguish over time, and it's compounding, it's cumulative. Ask any brass player. Ask any principal brass player how many years they can endure that psychologically. So the profession of the arts is self-limiting and limits the life of the artist within it. This has been over 10 minutes. I'll say a little bit about family. I was thinking about how families, so defined, are also limiting because they are exclusive. If you're part of a family that is not biological, you're included in the so-and-so's family, creative families. We have a local theater that's fond of calling itself a family, as long as you're part of it. If you're not, you feel like a starling. If you even go near them, you're not part of them. You're an outsider. And it doesn't matter how much joy or how much quality you produce. If you're not part of it, You know it. And it doesn't matter to you how happy that family is. All you know is that you're not part of that family. And if there are criteria for joining it, you, over time, in increments, lose your desire to seek out meeting any of that criteria. And our society wonders why there are iconoclasts and mavericks popping up everywhere now. You're looking at her. Mary Engelbreit is my hero. Bloom where you're planted. And I would add to that, choose where you want to put your roots down. Choose where you want to dig deep. Choose where you want to put those feet. Don't be owned by anyone or any entity or any notion. This has been Ruth Ann Talks. Thanks for leaning in.